On November 25, 1986, the world stopped as Attorney General Edwin Meese admitted on live television that arms had been traded to Iran, America's sworn enemy, and the proceeds funneled, illegally, to finance a secret war in Central America. The Reagan administration's covert world had been blown wide open, and the headlines were explosive. White House knew. America armed its enemies. Cash for hostages. The Iran-Contra Affair was a breathtaking act of hubris and secrecy at the highest levels of U.S. government. The Reagan administration, sworn to upholding American law, instead orchestrated a covert scheme to sell arms to Iran, then on the U.S. terrorist state list, and used the profits to illegally fund the Contra rebels in Nicaragua, circumventing Congress and the American people. The scope of deception was historic, implicating the White House, CIA, and top military officials, and it stunned the world. Trust in American democracy was rattled to its core. Why does this matter? It's a case study in unchecked power, billions in illegal arms deals, secret wars, and flagrant defiance of Congress. People died, democratic safeguards were trampled, and America's word on law and treaties became suspect. It remains a full-blown warning about what happens when government secrecy collides with ideology and ambition, and why transparency must never be optional in a democracy. Set in the 1980s Cold War paranoia, the context was shaped by President Ronald Reagan's fierce anti-communist worldview. Congress had banned funds for the Nicaraguan Contras, opposition to the leftist Sandinista regime, through the Boland Amendment. Key players included National Security Advisor John Poindexter, Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, CIA Director William Casey, and even whispers implicating Vice President George H.W. Bush. At stake, the rule of law, lives in Central America and the Middle East, and American credibility and self. The perpetrators were trusted stewards of national security, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, a decorated Marine operating from the White House basement, National Security Advisor John Poindexter with clearance beyond most, CIA Director William Casey, a spy master, and their congressional allies. Equipped with classified authority, control of budgets, and the presidency's trust, they stood at the nexus of government power. Their motivations were a volatile mix: ideological crusade to roll back communism at any cost, strategic maneuvering to ensure Reagan's legacy, and personal ambition among bureaucrats eager to shape history. Deep distrust of Congress led them to circumvent restrictions, with a willingness to break the law for a perceived higher cause. How did they execute it? By constructing a hidden network: arms deals with intermediaries to Iran, secret Swiss bank accounts, coded memos, forged shipping documents, and sophisticated money laundering. They lied to Congress, shredded evidence, and used a privately managed network to move funds and weapons under government radar. But the cover-up wasn't perfect. Overconfidence led to sloppy paper trails, arrogance in testimony, and leaks from disgruntled insiders. When a Lebanese magazine, Ash-Shira, published that the U.S. had secretly sold arms to Iran, the scheme unraveled. Congressional investigations and relentless press pursuit exposed a web of deceit that couldn't be contained. The truth emerged thanks to a combination of whistleblowers and dog investigators. Congressional committees, independent counsel Lawrence Walsh, and journalists like Seymour Hersh, The New York Times, and Bob Woodward, The Washington Post, helped expose the truth. Congressional staffers poring over cryptic emails and memos found a conspiracy hiding in plain sight. Smoking guns included hand-signed diversion memos by Oliver North, Swiss bank records, intercepted shipments, and testimony from key insiders. Congressional hearings were broadcast to millions. North's own words became explosive evidence, and declassified documents confirmed direct White House involvement. These investigators faced career risks, legal threats, and extraordinary resistance from the White House and intelligence agencies. Many documents were destroyed. Witnesses were obstructed or pressured to remain silent. The full truth still became public only because of relentless pursuit and mounting public pressure. The victims were many: American taxpayers whose funds supported illegal wars, Nicaraguan civilians caught in a brutal conflict, hostages manipulated for geopolitical leverage, and the foundations of U.S. democracy itself, as laws were broken in secret and trust was shattered. Internationally, allies and enemies alike saw America's hypocrisy on full display. The official line from the White House was denial: no arms for hostages, no secret war funding. But the documents revealed a parallel, illegal foreign policy machine inside the president's own staff, one that subverted congressional authority, shredded ethical boundaries, and lied repeatedly to the American people. The gap between spin and truth was vast and damning. Tens of millions flowed, At least $30 million in arms to Iran, millions sent covertly to the Contras, funds laundered through secret accounts, criminal intermediaries getting rich, and neither taxpayers nor Congress knowing. Financial controls failed, and taxpayer money funded both sides of proxy wars. Besides shattering public trust, the Iran-Contra Affair involved clear violations of U.S. law: the Arms Export Control Act, the Boland Amendment, perjury, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. Beyond legal failings, the ethical breach, bypassing constitutional checks, and deceiving the public, those with the most power worked hardest to avoid accountability. While lower and mid-level figures like North, Poindexter, and a handful of CIA officials were charged or convicted, some later pardoned, the highest players, including President Reagan and Vice President Bush, escaped direct legal consequences, protected by claims of plausible deniability, and last-minute pardons from George H.W. Bush. At first, skepticism clouded major networks. But as evidence mounted, media coverage shifted: front-page exposés, televised hearings, and editorial outrage. Investigative journalism played a decisive role. Outlets like the New York Times, Washington Post, and Newsweek refused to let the story die, putting relentless pressure on Congress and the White House. The ultimate casualty was faith in American government. Polls showed a majority of Americans believed the Reagan administration had acted illegally and without remorse. The myth of transparent, law-abiding leadership was left in ruins, replaced with increased skepticism and an enduring cynicism toward those in power. The depth of the cover-up was staggering. Dozens of operatives, shell corporations, secret memoranda, shredded documents, and covert communications. When exposed, the scale required a coordinated campaign of denials, scapegoating, and destruction of evidence. But mechanisms of investigative Congress and a vigilant press ultimately overwhelmed the conspiracy. The first cracks appeared in 1985, as rumors circulated that U.S. hostages in Lebanon were being released too coincidentally with arms shipments from Western sources. Congressional committees probing Central American operations sensed something off. Budgets didn't add up, covert flights increased, and paperwork was missing. At the scheme's peak, arms shipments departed quietly for Iran, U.S. officials met shadowy middlemen, and private cutouts delivered bags of cash to rebels in Central America. Lies were maintained with disciplined secrecy. Those executing the plan believed themselves untouchable, protected by powerful office and an aura of patriotism. But what they didn't count on was a leak. In November 1986, the Lebanese magazine Ash-Shira revealed the arms deals with Iran, sparking global outrage. Journalists and congressional investigators seized on the revelation. Internal memos began to surface, and suspicious financial transfers grabbed regulators' attention. The breaking point hit with televised congressional hearings. Images of Oliver North in uniform, admitting the diversion and destroying documents, gripped the nation. The independent counsel ramped up indictments. Top White House officials resigned or were fired, and the media firestorm forced even the president to address the nation in contrition. Yet even then, a last-ditch cover-up ensued. Poindexter and North destroyed countless records. Witnesses ducked subpoenas or pleaded the fifth. The Reagan administration issued blanket denials and scrambled to contain fallout, until sheer evidence overwhelmed the denials. Ultimately, the truth came out. Detailed memos, intercepted arms shipments, North's handwritten notes, and declassified White House communications proved the conspiracy. Congressional and independent counsel investigations confirmed a systematic campaign that violated U.S. law and ethical norms, driven by the president's closest advisors. The core crime: deliberate, calculated violation of laws forbidding arms sales to Iran and funding for the Contras, coupled with perjury and systemic deception of Congress and the public. This wasn't rogue freelancing. It was institutional conspiracy at the heart of government, with irreparable harm to democracy. How did they get so far? Institutional complicity, lax oversight, and an executive culture that prized secrecy and loyalty above legality. Congressional oversight was systematically evaded, and key agencies either looked the other way or actively helped maintain the lie. The press and whistleblowers had to battle extraordinary obstacles to break through. Exposure came from the courage of a few: investigative journalists unwilling to be bought off, congressional staffers poring over vague memos, and critically, unexpected leaks from overseas. It was relentless pursuit, not regulatory diligence, that cracked the cover-up. Was justice served? Only partly. Several officials were prosecuted. Poindexter and North were convicted, later overturned on technicalities. Most others received immunity to testify. President Bush pardoned 6 top conspirators, including former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger. Institutional reform was superficial. Real change proved elusive. The deciding factors: the courage of journalists, the accidental leak in a foreign newspaper, and mounting public outrage. Together, these forced accountability that the U.S. power structure desperately tried to avoid. Had the cover-up held, the U.S. might have spent years funding wars with cash from terrorist-designated regimes. The precedent, unchecked presidential covert action, would have further eroded all congressional and legal oversight. Secrecy would have deepened, legality reduced to political theater. If real justice had followed, the highest officials would have faced prosecution, the law reaffirmed, and sweeping reforms installed to prevent similar abuses. Trust in government might have been rebuilt, and America's international credibility salvaged. Instead, selective prosecution and widespread impunity prevailed. The Iran-Contra Affair was the Watergate of foreign policy, a high-level institutional scandal echoing abuses seen in Operation Fast and Furious and modern debates over covert drone strikes, intelligence overreach, and government contractors. In every case, executive excess and lack of transparency are constant risks. While congressional oversight was nominally tightened, the deep lesson that secrecy and unchecked executive power breed disaster remains ignored in too many quarters. Cynicism and distrust in government only deepened, and future administrations learned to hide similar schemes more effectively. The Iran-Contra Affair was an audacious, illegal scheme carried out at the heart of the U.S. government. Arms shipped to Iran, proceeds sent to the Contras, laws broken, lies piled high, and cover-ups attempted by the highest officials. Exposure came only through relentless investigation and an international leak. Most perpetrators evaded real punishment. The damage, however, was lasting and undeniable. But as always, the story is complex. Institutional failure enabled individual crime, with lines blurred between ideology, patriotism, and criminality. Responsibility was diffused, deniability plausible, and accountability selective, a perfect storm for systemic corruption. Very few faced real consequences. A handful saw convictions overturned on appeal or received last-minute pardons. The most powerful walked away unscathed. Congressional reforms promised accountability, but the machinery of secrecy and executive privilege proved hard to dismantle. Justice was partial, and for many, deeply unsatisfying. The ultimate lesson? When ideology and ambition justify secrecy and lawbreaking, democracy suffers. Only vigilant press, courageous whistleblowers, and relentless public scrutiny can check abuse at the highest levels. Trust, once shattered, is agonizing to rebuild. Why does this still matter? Because the machinery of secrecy, covert action, and power without oversight remains largely intact. Modern scandals, rendition, intelligence overreach, secret wars echo the Iran-Contra playbook. It's a warning as urgent today as it was in 1986. The Iran-Contra Affair exposed the corrosive effects of unchecked power, secret government, and illegal covert action at the heart of American democracy. Despite clear evidence and dramatic public hearings, real accountability proved elusive, leaving an indelible lesson. In the shadows of power, only transparency and vigilance can protect a free society. In betrayal of its ideals, America armed its enemies, lied to its people, and risked everything for power. The lesson? Watch the shadows, because they never truly disappear. And next time, we dive into the shocking world of corporate greed, with the Enron scandal, when market manipulation nearly broke the U.S. economy. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because the truth is always more explosive than the cover story.